raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Guarding light in secret places, betrayed, broken, torn apart. Still the vow burns in the heart. Hearing voices, quiet prayer, scattered seeds still waiting there. In the shadows, time stood still, but the mission holds it always well. Nothing can stop what is coming. The fire, the thunder, the drumming. It's gonna be biblical, the final hour. Truth revealed in holy power. Through the decades they were called. Fathers, mothers gave their all. Wives and warriors, sons of flame, bearing witness in God's name. Quiet strength behind the veil, standing strong when others failed, waiting for the trumpet's cry. The army rises side by side. Nothing can stop what is coming. The fire, the thunder, the drumming. It's gonna be biblical, the final hour. Truth revealed in holy power. Through the storm, the veil will tear.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic evening. And if you caught the two little oopsies there, my internet dropped out, got that back up, and then my YouTube just went weird. And yeah, okay. So you guys saw my YouTube feed. You saw my algorithm. It's weird because Nino's up there. But I hope everybody is doing well, man. And it's Wednesday. It's hump day. I got my DARE shirt on. We're not doing drugs here. That's right. Keeping kids off drugs, people. That's right. DARE. Drug attention resistance education. I don't know. What does this stand for? I don't remember anymore. It's been so long since I had to go through DARE class. I think it was like 3rd grade or something like that. But tonight, so typically on Wednesdays and Fridays is when we would do this Q&A. So it's either Wednesday or Friday, depending. I'm sorry, we're trying to find a good home for it, but also I want to give people kind of versatility, right? Because not everybody can make it Friday and not everybody can make it Wednesday. So we've been alternating. This week it is on Friday, and the reason is I think Alpha is going to join us, but he doesn't know that, but he does know that. But so this week, I think it's going to be on Friday. Well, definitely going to be on Friday. It's not going to be tonight. So definitely not tonight. It's going to be Friday. So that is Friday live Q&A with myself, potentially Alpha Warrior joining me, and maybe we'll get someone else to join us. Yeah, I can't remember DARE. Too much weed. But yeah, so if you guys want to take part in those live Q&As, you know what to do. Go to redpills.tv, go to the premium tab, find out where you can get a premium subscription, join up over there, and then once you get that premium subscription, it is in the chat feeds for the premium members. And if you're wondering how to do that, YouTube, SUBSTACK, locals.com, socialredpill.com, which is our private social network, and there's one more in there. Man, I'm drawing blanks tonight. No, I think that's it. Yeah. That should be it. I have to actually go check right now. Oh, X. Yes, you can't forget about X. It's X. I think I'm the one sniffing the glue tonight. My brain's a little whoop. But I didn't have my Pet Club Clarity mushrooms in the last 12 hours. I took one this morning. I took 2 this morning, actually. I take 2 of the Restore, 2 of the Clarity, and 2 of the Coriolis Versicolor every morning. And then I take 1 Coriolis Versicolor with Reishi at night with usually 1 Clarity or 1 Restore. But yeah, I don't remember what the A stands for. Does anybody remember what the A stands for in DARE? I know it's resistance education. Something. But man, what an interesting day. Lots of different kind of newses coming out. That's right. News is coming out. Tonight we're talking about the silent war and deep state factions. Because a lot of this, drug abuse, resistance, and education. Thank you, Dan Dreed. Dan Dreed, appreciate that. Drug abuse, resistance, and education. You're awesome. Now I remember, and now I'll never forget. But a lot of things happening right now. We're starting to see kind of things beginning to pick up. We're getting indications that shit is about to hit the proverbial fan, which is good. So where do we start? Well, let's start with this part of the conversation. Representative Brandon Gale explains why President Trump is the most powerful force in American political history. He did this on Benny. Let's listen to what he has to say about President Trump, and I bet it reiterates what I said last night.
And the reality is that the people are with President Trump, and they want somebody who is going to fight alongside President Trump to get his agenda passed, whether it's the Save America Act, whether it's immigration more broadly, whether it's anything else. They want somebody who's going to have his back because they know that he is looking out for the American people. You know, one thing you saw President Trump endorse Paxton a few weeks ago. And, you know, the left likes to talk about how President Trump's influence is waning. He's a lame duck president. I mean, if the past month or two have shown you anything about American politics, especially GOP politics, it's that President Trump is the most powerful force in American political history, possibly in all of American political history. Mm-hmm. It's that his endorsement is worth its political weight and gold. That's why everybody seeks President Trump's endorsement, because that's where the people are. And the people look to President Trump because they know he's fighting for him. And I think that endorsement went a really long ways in this Senate race as well.
Okay. Yes, Trump is the most powerful man in U.S. political history. I agree with that assessment, but I would also say that Donald Trump is the most powerful human being on the planet right now that we know of in a public sitting position. He wages more power than any other political leader, I believe, in history that we can remember, at least in the modern day. So what does that mean? It means that he knows what he's doing, that the things that we're watching Trump do, these actions that seem misled, they seem chaotic. Why is he going in and grabbing Maduro? Why is he going into Venezuela and bombing Venezuela? Or why is he bombing Iran? Why is he raising tariffs on all these countries? Why is he doing all of these things? See, I think that a while back, that Trump understood something. He understood that the power of the American people had been taken from them. Okay? I've talked about this before. It's the fourth branch of government. And see, after 1902, when the Senate got reorganized and people began to vote for the Senate, and when the Commerce Department and the lobby were set up, Americans began to lose their power. And their power was truly the voice of the people and the power of the people, the ability of the people to combine forces and to get a regress of grievances from their government. And over the 20th century, that power dwindled in the face of massive amounts of money flowing in through special interests, foreign interests, and corporations. They drowned out the voice of Americans. And President Trump, I think, understands this very, very well, that the American people, you can't give them back power that they don't know how to use and they don't know what it is. And I think that this term that we're seeing right here from 2025 on forth is an operation to wake up America, to get America looking back and go, what the hell is he doing? Why is he doing that? To get people out there and start the research and investigate, the people to turn on podcasts and go, I need an explanation for what is happening right now, because this makes no sense. I voted for this man, or I didn't vote for this man, or he's going to kill us all, or there's something going on here. A woman told me a while back, and she said, it's really, really scary. I voted for President Trump, and I don't understand what he's doing. It's very chaotic, and it scares me. And she goes, why can't he just tell us? And I came in and I said, well, you can't tell the people the truth. You have to show them the truth. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now is the lead into this. It's getting people, everyday average Americans, moderates, independents, Democrats, all paying attention to every single move that Donald Trump is doing. They are watching him like a hawk because you cannot ignore it, because it's affecting your life, my life, everybody's life every day. It is scary times because there is war being waged. And that war, in a lot of part, is a silent war. And many people don't understand it. They can't see it. That's why they seek out answers. That's why they find podcasts like this. This is also why you had the Q operation that went out there, and it set up this alternative form of media. It taught us how to utilize the Socratic method. It showed us the breadcrumbs in the rabbit holes. It got us entrained in this idea of what was actually unfolding. Why was that so important? Because it got Anons out there and the honest out there to begin researching and investigating, and then putting it out there to where we became the media. We became this new idea of how information is disseminated to the American people. And now what you're seeing is the Trump administration utilizing silence on their agenda, or not necessarily science, because they actually outline it pretty well in the national security strategy and the national defense strategy, if people are paying attention. But they are utilizing their actions to get the American people's attention, which then drives them to the alternative media, to where they can get assessments on potentially what is happening in the world. I think that what we are watching is an operation that was well planned. I think that before Donald Trump can really pull the trigger and make the moves that he needs to do, that the American people have to be on his side, that the American people have to understand and truly see the vision that Donald Trump is trying to implement within the world. What is that vision? If you're new here, if you're just watching, if you're just tuning in, you're like, Trump's an asshole, I don't understand Trump, or whatever it is. Let me help you understand this. Number one is you had a long existing establishment, a bureaucracy that existed within the U.S. federal government. Not only the federal government, but also within the state and local governments. They colluded together to retain power at any and all cost. And then, over time, began implementing an agenda. That agenda was to undermine the U.S. Constitution, to bring America to her knees, and allow America to fall in the plight of China's rise to power. After America's fall, then the United States and many other nations in the world would reorganize into a one-world government. The interesting part about this is many of these deep state factions that were operated within the local, state, and federal governments, they were funded heavily by this NGO, non-governmental organization infrastructure, NPOs, non-profit organizations, and corporate entities and foreign interest. They were funded by this. Now, here's the crazy part about that, is that those NGOs didn't fund it with private money. They funded it with money that came from the taxpayers, because those same politicians in the establishment, what they would do is they would take USAID or the National Endowment for Democracy, and they would fund these programs billions of dollars per year, and they would send the money off to foreign countries, or they'd send the money off to various different NGO programs, and that money would get redirected back to political campaigns to ensure that those politicians stayed in place, retained their power, and B, that the agendas, whatever it might have been, social justice, transgenderism, or whatever social cultural change that they wanted to implement through various different social engineering, got implemented through the funding that wrapped around through this boomerang type of situation, to where USAID and various other funding went out to NGOs and foreign nations and then flowed back into the United States through private corporations, shell companies, and NGOs. This has been going on for a very, very long time. So when you start to look at it, you're like, whoa, well, that's not cool. And here's the thing, is it doesn't have a party. It doesn't have a face. It's not Republicans and Democrats. Although as a conservative, I'd say Democrat a lot, or Democrat a lot. But you have to understand that it's a uni-party, that they work together. We call those on the Republican side rhinos or neocons. That they work together, that they maintain and sustain their power by joint affiliation, by voting with each other, by hooking people up in the backdoor deals. And that when you have that immense of power, you can take down the United States of America, especially if you get a president in the executive branch that can go out there and begin making executive orders and policy changes that begin to undermine the 200 years prior history of what was built up as the United States of America. So Donald Trump comes in and he disrupts that system. But he can't just go in and disrupt that system. He has to create a movement behind it. That movement behind it has to be more powerful than Donald Trump himself. This is the ultimate idea. You have to bring someone in who understands movement warfare. And we have someone out there in our movement who is the mastermind behind movement warfare, who I think was the person who created and generated this whole plan and scheme to bring this all about. But what you have to understand is that President Trump has to be the leader of the movement that is more powerful than him. That way, if they tried to take him out, or if he did get taken out, he becomes a martyr, and that movement becomes more powerful than ever before. It ensures survivability of the ideals and the framework which was being implemented. But also, it begins that rising up of who the people really are and the people's power. If you remember in 2016, when Donald Trump won the RNC primary, he came out and said, we are going to return power back to the American people. That's what this is all about, returning power back to the American people. But you cannot return the power back if the people don't know what that power is. And that power is much more than your voice. It is the freedom of ideas, the freedom of religion, it is the freedom of information dissemination, of telling people what you believe, what you think, what you want, and what they hear. It is personal privacy. It is going out there and retaining your God-given sovereignty and your rights and your liberties and your freedoms. It is ensuring that your politicians don't undermine your God-given rights, liberties, and freedoms. It is the power to go out there and remove your government if they ever try to stop you from living the life that you want to live. And what does that mean? Is within the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration of Independence, many people will tell you that there's three rights that are discussed within the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's more. It says right after that when the government becomes tyrannical to the means, it is the right of the people to remove or dissolve that government and institute new governments of men. That's a fourth right. That was enshrined within the Second and the 10th Amendment, the First, Second, and 10th Amendment of the United States. And that's the power that we've forgotten about, and that's the power that is being instilled within us right now. The power to know, the power to understand, the power to observe, the power to go out there and watch what's unfolding and dissect it without being told what is happening, to go out there and make up our own minds on what we see is happening in the world. And guess what? That whole mental scape that we're talking about shapes the coming world. When the power of the American people get behind the ideals of America first and understand the war that is truly being fought, America begins to rise towards those ideals. What is that? It is winning the AI war. What the hell's the AI war, Josh? The AI war is that Pandora's box has been opened, and you aren't going to fucking close it. Think about it. Pandora's box has been opened. I know people are like, AI's Satan, AI's a demon, AI's evil. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's Pandora's box has been opened, accept that fact. And that AI is now going to become the new framework that is going to lead civilization into the future. You can yell, scream, cry, gripe all you want about it. Doesn't matter. That is the path. This is the way. It is happening. And understanding that, then you have to understand that there's phases of AI generation. There's traditional AI, then there's artificial general intelligence, which is a very broad scope. But then there's artificial superintelligence. So artificial general intelligence is basically when an AI can basically do more than all human beings combined on the planet. So they can do the job of a lawyer, a doctor. They can do the job of working men. They can do all of these various different tasks. They can do mathematics, all better than human beings. We are at AGI right now. We are at AGI right now. Which means that the next step is artificial superintelligence. This is where AI becomes far more superior in intellect, in intelligence than us. It thinks faster. It thinks more deeper. It begins to correlate and relate various different relationships that we've never even thought of. And you're saying, but it's a machine. It doesn't matter. A machine that is programmed to think, to write its own algorithms. And what does this mean? It means that whomever attains artificial superintelligence first is going to win what we call the AI war. And if that is China, then we have some big problems. Because China has laid out since the 1990s the doctrine of unrestricted warfare, the 100-year plan to take over the world, that their vision of how the world should operate is the correct one. They have plans to make the United States of America farmland, and those plans do not include you and I. Whereas, is if China obtains artificial superintelligence, we lose the war without a shot being fired. But if we win the war on artificial intelligence, the war never happens. We move into a multipolar world framework. We all work together, kumbaya, technological revolution, renaissance. Now, to understand why that works that way, you have to understand something about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has three core fundamentals at its foundation: data, computation, and energy. China was winning the AI war up until Donald Trump came in. If you're a military general, if you're a strategist, tactician out there, one of the things you understand is that if you're in a warfare situation, if you're in a battle and you have command and control authority, what you have to do is either stop your enemy from obtaining the superior advantage, stop or limit your enemy from obtaining the superior advantage, while at the same time increasing your advantage over them. That is how you play the game. So China had three legs to their energy triangle: Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Well, and they also got it from various other OPEC nations: Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, so forth. One of the first things that Donald Trump did when he came in to his position as president of the United States, he went out there and made a defense cooperation agreement and defense pact agreement with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, three of the largest oil and gas producers within the Middle East that all sell oil and gas to China. If you remember, you go back to 2022, the Belt and Roads Initiative through China and the BRICS nations, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, were all trying to create a new financial system, which basically cleared and utilized the digital yuan as the Chinese currency, the digital yuan, as the clearance for oil and gas. And Saudi Arabia actually signed on to that in 2022. Trump goes out there and makes a defense pact agreement with Saudi Arabia and with these other nations. He gives them massive amounts of F-35s, gives them bombs and missiles, and he brings them into a cooperation agreement to where if the United States needs them, they have to respond. If they need the United States has to respond. Now, why was that a strategy? Because if this is where China gets a certain amount of energy or oil from, and China makes a move on the United States of America, the United States of America can engage that pact agreement, that cooperation agreement, and put proxy sanctions on China by shutting off the oil in that region. That's pretty damn smart. Then Trump went out there and he took Maduro out, which correlates to the 2020 election, but also to the control of the various different factions of Venezuela, which were European influenced and Chinese influenced. And once Maduro was taken out, Delcy Rodriguez was set up, and now she is over working with the United States of America. And that oil is being trafficked to the United States of America, going out of the Gulf of America and being sold to China through the United States of America, through proxy. So, and then the Panama Canal was taken away from China. In other words, that's two major legs of Chinese energy that were severed within the first year of Donald Trump's presidency. The other one was the Strait of Hormuz and Iran. There's another component to that deals with the old guard. This is the London banking dynasties and the old royal bloodlines and the European aristocracy. I'm not going to get into that part at the moment because we're actually going to get into that later in the show. But what I want you to see in the sense of China is that China was getting oil from Iran at 30% market rate. The United States went in there and showed that they can shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Why? That's a warning to China. It's a warning to China that, hey, if you invade Taiwan or if you go to war with us, we'll just shut down the Strait of Hormuz. You're not going to get oil from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. You're not going to get it from Iran. You're not going to get it from Venezuela. Then how does Russian oil get into China? It goes up the Strait of Malacca, which is 1/8 the size of the Strait of Hormuz. Which if we can shut down the Strait of Hormuz, we can shut down the Strait of Malacca. It was a power flex to China. Not only that is what's going to come out of the Iran deal is more aspects of control, the breaking of the ties of the London bankers' control over Iranian oil, the Iranian terror premium. China will still get their oil from Iran, but Donald Trump has shown that we can shut down the Straits of Hormuz instantaneously. In other words, it's the accessibility to energy and resources and those energy and resources themselves that become the real power faction, because that is the base foundation of artificial intelligence. You need energy in order for AI to advance. So Donald Trump's playing that game right now. People are like, what the hell's going on in the world? I don't get it. This is what's going on in the world. At the same time, he's dismantling the Belt and Roads Initiative all throughout the entire world. He's dismantling the deep state infrastructure. He's removing the corruption within various different programs. I had a woman the other day yelling at me about, I'm a nurse and he's demolishing Medicaid and Medicare. And we got people out there that aren't insured. And I said, well, whose fault is that? I said, whose fault is that? Think about it. I said, think about it for a minute. Is if you have $19 billion worth of Medicaid and Medicare fraud in Minnesota alone, do you just continue to send those checks out, or do you pull back and say, nope, everybody's got to refile and prove the validation of their claim? She goes, well, that makes sense. And I said, yeah, it makes sense. And that's what happened. She goes, yeah, but a lot of these people don't have the ability. That's not my problem. That's not their problem. They're trying to stop fraud. So a lot of things are happening right now. A lot of things are unfolding. We're going to talk about a lot of this. I haven't even began to go through the news stories. But I thought it was important because we got a lot of new viewers here. A lot of people here that are first timers or this is their first few weeks watching this show. And I wanted to give a whole analysis so they could kind of see where we are and where we came from and what's really happening here. So we're going to do a transition into the news here in just a minute. Before I do that, though, it is Wednesday, and I got to bring on the guy in front of the American flag. Dave.
Hey, Josh, how's it going, man?
Good, Dave. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. It's always good to hear you, and great to support you and what you're doing, and we appreciate your support. So it's a very mutual thing. And, talking about political parties, I always think about George Washington, the man himself. He warned us against political parties. He was independent during a period of time when the Federalists, the Anti-Federalists were all hashing it out, and he warned us. He warned us about a lot of things, and political parties was one of them. so he was a smart guy. So we have you mentioned you have a lot of new listeners and that sort of thing. So GOODBRU is the product spelled GOODBRU.com, and use Repill for 10% off. And we still have the Memorial Day special going. We left it up. We launched it on the show last week and still got it going. 2 mediums at a really good price. And then you add the Repill discount and you get another 10% off of that. So, GOODBRU is a product. It's a symbiotic product, but it's an organic symbiotic product. It means that, we're using the type of fiber, prebiotic fiber that your gut microbiome was really has evolved to feed on, rather than a lot of these synthetic fibers and dextrins and these sorts of things that are being sold on the market as the biggest prebiotics and fibers that are out there. And they're not even natural or what we're meant to use. And we combine that with a spore-forming probiotic that supports your gut microbiome. It's a type of probiotic that we would have gotten in nature from digging things up in the soil. And it produces the kinds of metabolites that really support that microbiome that we get from our mothers at birth, that are the colonizing microbes. And people need to understand that there's a difference between a transitory probiotic like we use that survives very well. It survives as a spore. That's why you can put it in coffee. We're the only probiotic symbiotic product you can put in coffee. We have 25 clinical studies behind this strain of probiotic, but it loves to germinate in the gut. That's what it does. And so it survives the stomach acid survives your coffee, and it gets into the lower intestine where it needs to get to in combination with this fiber, prebiotic fiber, and it produces the metabolites that support these other very important keystone microbes that really, impact the entire health of everything in the body. And the production of short chain fatty acids, supporting of proper hormone balances, serotonin, 90% of serotonin's produced in the gut, limiting and managing the balance of cortisol to serotonin. And B vitamins, and on and on and on. And this aspect of leaky gut, we talked about microplastics last week. So, the large percentage of people in the Western world have some signs of leaky gut. And then for a lot of people, it becomes this very chronic thing that's very hard to repair. And the leaky gut is where the cells in the lining of the gut intestinal tract become weak, and the connection between these cells allow toxins and undigested proteins and things to get outside of the digestive system that then spirals out of control into all these autoimmune problems. And now they're connecting that to dementia, and they're looking at people leaky gut and leaks in the blood-brain barrier are correlated, and all of these things, heart disease and cancers and colon cancers, all of this being related to a disrupted microbiome, obesity, and on and on and on. All of them very much, very well researched out. Tons, just a massive science behind the importance of the gut microbiome. And this has gotten worse with preservatives and pesticides and antibiotics and other medications. I was just reading a paper too, where they've looked at a good paper that just showed, like, not only have antibiotics disrupted our microbiome, but just about every other kind of medication has had sort of an equally negative impact on the gut microbiome. And a lot of them that we use to try and band-aid over these problems, because, we have all of these testimonials of people who have suffered for years with chronic constipation and acid reflux and these sorts of things. And GOODBRU has really helped them tremendously with these problems that, where we're really actually healing the gut rather than, just band-aiding over it. But they've shown, I was just reading how antacids and proton pump inhibitors have been, not only do they just band-aid over a problem, but they've also really disrupt the microbiome significantly. Also, a lot of antidepressants do the same thing. Benzodiazepine, those family of drugs, Valium, that sort of thing, they've now shown that has had a really negative impact in long term too. Like when we take antibiotics, it looks like, depending on how old you are and how you are when you take them, and how the type you take and how long you take them. But even just a regular dose of antibiotics, expect at least 6 months really for your gut to, as an adult, to readjust, maybe 12 months or even longer. And when children take antibiotics, especially high regimens, it can mess them up for life, actually. But now they're showing that a lot of these other medications have similar impacts. So GOODBRU is this very much a basic kind of symbiotic, organic symbiotic that works really well. You use it as a scoop. That way you can adjust it, right, A, to what works for you. So always start small with it. But B, because it is a scoop, you actually get enough and a significant amount of the prebiotic. In these capsules, not only do the probiotics aren't really meant to get into our bodies that way through capsules, they don't survive well on the shelf, they don't survive through the stomach, but the capsule also cannot contain enough prebiotic fiber if it's sold as a prebiotic to really make a difference. You got to have a significant amount, and by using it as a scoop, you get that. You also get the convenience. It doesn't affect the flavor of your coffee, but we have people put it in juice and yogurt and all of these other things. So it's basic, and it also has some very good clinical studies behind the probiotic itself and increasing protein utilization by up to 20%, nutrient absorption, immune function. These have clinical, well-studied research behind the strain of probiotic that we use specifically. So it survives in your coffee. It survives through the stomach. It is in combination with a significant amount of prebiotic fiber. It's easy to use. It's organic, and it supports the other microbe. It's really doing a job of supporting the other microbes, and so all of these things that are impacting us. And we do have the special on, and we could talk on and on and on. But I know
Memorial Day special is still up for anybody out there, and this is what I want people to do. If you're listening and you have not tried GOODBRU, or you tried it and you want some more, goodbrew.com/redpill, GOODBRU.com/redpill, and use that code redpill at checkout for 10% off. And that's GOODBRU. BRU is how you spell brew there. Gabe, I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. You take care, and talk to you soon.
Yep, we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, GOODBRU. Support those that support us, and GOODBRU is awesome, phenomenal. I love having Gabe on. And then one more, we're going to do the kids guide. And remember this, you got to read the disclaimer on this one on Rumble. So if you go out and get your free kids guide, make sure you read the disclaimer, because they do charge a subscription afterwards. But we're going to go ahead and do this one. We're going to jump right into the news right after this. All right, parents, real talk for a second. America's about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on America's 250th birthday, 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-government the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just fireworks and hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why their ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you'll want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with a special offer. You just need to pay the $2 for shipping and processing. Just head to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is yours for your kids. Today, America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows. All right. The moment you've all been waiting for. Dum, 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 dum. Now, it's interesting. A lot of people are beginning to pick up on the Trump administration's linked figures who recently faced cancer diagnosis. Pam Bondi, thyroid cancer. Tulsi Gabbard resigned to care for her husband with aggressive bone cancer. Vanessa Trump, breast cancer. Susie Wiles, early stage breast cancer, continues working. Now, I talked about this. During the Cold War, the CIA openly explored assassination programs against Fidel Castro, including poisoned cigars, contaminated diving suits, biological agents, in collaboration with organized crime. At the same time, SV40, simian virus 40, was discovered in monkey cells used in earlier polio vaccines. In lab studies, SV40 was shown to cause tumors in animals, sparking decades of controversy over its potential cancer links. Now enter one of the strangest JFK-adjacent stories ever told. Judith Bari Baker claims she was recruited into a covert cancer research operation in New Orleans tied to anti-Castro activities. She alleged that the project aimed to weaponize aggressive cancer mechanisms, potentially involving SV40 research, for use against Castro through contaminated cigars. She also claimed that Lee Harvey Oswald was involved and that she had a relationship with him. The story intersects with documented CIA assassination plots against Castro, biological warfare research during the Cold War, Oswald's intelligent adjacent connections, Dr. Mary Sherman's mysterious death, and anti-Castro covert operations in New Orleans. Enough of surrounding pieces are historically real within all of this to make this very, very true. Now, with the DNI being targeted by the CIA recently, in today's the resignation this last week of DNI Tulsi Gabbard because of her husband's diagnosis, makes you wonder, is this the CIA, this covert operation, targeting members of the Trump administration? I think it is. Now, an interesting part about this is a story that was told to me. One of my buddies, one of his friends was one of the bodyguards for Bob Marley. Pretty cool, huh? And he said that in the early 1980s, this kid showed up in Jamaica to Bob Marley's house every day with a pair of shoes. And he tried to give Bob Marley these shoes. And every day the security guards would tell him to go away, go away, go away, go away. One day, Bob Marley was walking out the door. At the same time, the kid was coming up to give him the shoes. And the security guard told him to go away. And Bob Marley says, no, 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 no. What do you got, son? And the kid pulled out the shoes and he wanted to give them to Bob. And Bob says, oh, thank you so much. And he takes off his flip-flop and he puts the shoe on and he immediately yells, ouch. He takes the shoe off. He thanks the kid, throws him in the back seat, doesn't think anything of it. 6 months later, Bob Marley's dead of toe cancer. I don't know. You figure it out. The next Congress that we have will not have Al Green, Jasmine Crockett, Dan Crenshaw, Eric Swalwell, Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, Don Bacon, Jerry Nadler, Bill Cassidy, Tom Massey, or John Cornyn. Talk about draining the swamp. Donald Trump has been 117 for 117 on endorsements. Now, that doesn't mean that, hey, look, it's going to be a red wave. It just means that in the Republican Party, in the conservative movement, Donald Trump is an absolute legend and that his endorsement is gold. When it gets into the general election, it's going to be much more interesting. With all of the various different things that we're watching happening right now, we know that there's going to be a report on election integrity and infrastructure from DNI Gabbard before she leaves office, pertaining to the investigation in the Puerto Rico and Fulton County, Georgia, and Maricopa County, and any other evidence in grand juries that they have formulated out there. We know that Donald Trump's executive order was a pre-staged event for most likely a national emergency on election integrity and infrastructure that is coming about. We need to have this all in tow before the midterms elections. I don't believe that the SAVE Act is going to get passed. Now, many are saying that Tulsi Gabbard is going to go nuclear on the deep state before leaving the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. These revelations that she's going to bring about will be the declassification covering Havana syndrome, the origins of COVID-19, the alleged weaponization of the federal government under the Democrat administrations, and the 2020 presidential election. In other words, crimes within the last decade of the deep state and the Democrats. And that this is going to bring about massive declassification, something that John Sullivan talked about in the context of hypersonic clarity, which we didn't see immediately with Todd Blanche. But we're seeing indications that all of this stuff is moving forward right now. The DOJ is moving to question Fulton County, Georgia 2020 election workers as part of a huge fraud investigation. The DOJ is trying to get the names and addresses and has already raided and seized the ballots. This is full panic mode that is happening in Georgia right now. Trump, over the last few days, has been talking about the largest Medicaid fraud cases in Minnesota's history, and the largest autism fraud has ever charged by the federal government. Why is this important? You got to go back to what Scott Bessent said. He said that what happened in Minnesota is going to be the model we are going to use for other states. New York, Illinois, Michigan, California. They are coming and they are prepping their moves right now before they go in and annihilate all of this fraud that is occurring in other states. Now, what does John Solomon have to say with what is coming? Remember, this is all hinging off of DNI Tulsi Gabbard's resignation.
Grace, I don't think so from the reporting I'm doing. Meanwhile, a lot of reaction to the story that we broke in the last 24 hours. President Trump himself reacted to it, socialized the story. But we now have a second piece of evidence that the Justice Department under Joe Biden knew that its raid on Mar-a-Lago was bad. A couple months ago, we told you that the FBI had memos saying that they did not believe they had probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago, but they did it anyways. They went into the president's home looking for allegedly classified documents. Well, a couple days after that raid, one of Merrick Garland's top advisors, someone he personally brought in to make sure that they stayed ethical in their investigations of President Trump, wrote an email saying, I don't believe we had the right to go raid Mar-a-Lago. In fact, I've been worrying about it ever since I found out about it. Why? As she noted, and as we reported at the time back in 2022, she believed President Trump may have declassified the documents before he left office and therefore had every right to possess those documents at Mar-a-Lago. That is a smoking gun. Those two documents together could potentially create an overt act in a conspiracy case alleging that President Trump's civil liberties were violated. That is exactly what Joe DeGenova and the team in Miami and Fort Pierce are looking at. Today, that team was in Washington meeting briefly with the Attorney General, Todd Blanche.
So Joe Genova's team, which, by the way, Joe Genova was recently appointed as U.S. attorney to take over. So if people don't know the history of this, Pam Bondi started the grand jury investigation. You have Jason Redding Quinones down there as a U.S. attorney in Fort Pierce, Florida, in the Southern District of Florida. And they started up the grand jury investigation into the 2016-2017 ICA, Intelligence Community Assessment. And this was investigating John Brennan, which was also at the same time investigating the Mar-a-Lago raid and the criminality and weaponization of the DOJ. The Pam Bondi got fired, and 3 days before she was fired, the U.S. attorney that was overseeing the grand jury resigned, stating that there was not enough information to put out there to convict John Brennan. Now, this is kind of interesting because a week prior to this, they had issued subpoenas for cooperating witnesses. James Comey, James Clapper, these types of people were involved in that. Then what happened? Todd Blanche comes in. Immediately, Joe Genova comes in as a U.S. attorney, goes over there and replaces on this grand jury investigation. They dropped the subpoena request and asked for cooperating witnesses to come in. A few of them did come in for witness testimony. I believe new subpoenas will probably be issued. And they have a new alignment of information. Since then, what we're seeing is new information coming out about the Mar-a-Lago raid. Now, why is the Mar-a-Lago raid and the 2016-2017 intelligence community assessment with John Brennan so critically important? Because they're both interconnected. Back in 2020, I think it was September 12th or September. So it's September 20th and December 12th, or it was September 12th, December 20th. September 12th, December 20th. 2020. Donald Trump copy and pasted the same tweet twice on Twitter. It stated, I hereby declassify all information pertaining to a Crossfire hurricane and the Hillary Clinton email investigation. He declassified all of this information. What happened? It went through the redactions, went to the FBI, went through the ODNI, came back to President Trump's desk, declassified, redacted on January 17, 2021, 3 days before he left Washington, D.C. He took a copy of that binder, which was in a red binder, with him to Mar-a-Lago. And then the next day, January 21st, 2021, the new incoming Director of National Intelligence reclassified all of that information that Donald Trump had already declassified. And that is what they used as justification to go after President Trump. That is complete weaponization of the government and a violation of his civil rights, as well as a war tactic that is very, very interesting that a lot of people are most likely going to go to jail over. So Joe DeGenova, his team is meeting in Fort Pierce, Florida today. His team out of Fort Pierce, Florida, was in Washington, D.C. today meeting with Todd Blanche. Why? Most likely for an update on Todd Blanche or what is coming and what they need. They probably need certain aspects of things declassified. Now, you have CISA, which would be, you think about this, is you have a grand jury and you're talking about information that is still classified within the government. In order for that grand jury to go out there and get access to that classified information, they have to go through a process called CISA. And that would require them for security clearances, to get authorization, to go into SCIFs, to get the documentation. That could take years for review. Now, what is better than that is complete declassification. So Joe Genova is most likely going to Todd Blanche, giving a list to him and Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. These are the documents that we need declassified immediately so we can give them to the grand jury so we can move forth with indictments. So that's my thought on what is happening right now. And I think that around July, August timeframe, late July, early August timeframe, August is going to be a very, very hot month. Now, this is interesting. Stephen Miller with Jesse Waters. Last night on DEF CON, I was talking about how the Democrats basically control various different factions of Republicans, the rhinos, neocons, as well as how they control other Democrats. And we were talking about John Cornyn, about how he's actually relieved in his concession speech. That it was almost like John Cornyn was like, 28 years, I can finally just live stress-free without thinking that this stuff is going to come out about me, or someone's going to make up stuff about me, or my career is going to be ruined. That he gets to retire as a senator that did well for the country or whatever. And we talked about on DEF CON how this is how they control you in Washington, D.C. with compromise. Well, I found it really interesting that today, Stephen Miller said the same thing.
Have you here? Has the president said anything about Swalwell? I don't know if he said anything. Has he been following that?
Why, has he had a bad week, Jesse? I haven't been watching.
You might be busy with bigger matters of war and peace.
Couldn't have happened to a better person. But look, here's the most important thing if we have 10 seconds on this, and I'm sure you would agree with this. The most important part about this story, and look, Swalwell is a scumbag. He is a terrible person, the worst of the worst, the lowest of the low, the most dishonest and the most dishonest. But the real story here is how the Democrat Party controls its members through blackmail. It's got a blackmail file on all of its politicians, and it uses them to leverage and control them until it's time to release it. That is how sick and twisted the Democrat Party is. That's the next thread we've got to pull out here, Jesse.
Ooh, that's the next thread we have to pull out here. Today, the Department of Justice launched a criminal investigation into Trump accuser E. Jean Carroll. This is going to be interesting. Why is it going to be interesting? When you start to realize that E. Jean Carroll was being coached, guided by the DNC, by DNC lawyers, by people within government and directed through aspects of the White House, it's going to get real interesting. So the Trump administration announced that Donald Trump is removing his lawsuit against the IRS, a $10 billion lawsuit for releasing his tax returns, leaking them out there, and that in return, what he requested is a $1.776 billion settlement for all the people affected by government weaponization. Now, Gavin Newsom didn't like this. Today, Gavin Newsom announced that he will impose a 100% tax on payments from Trump's January 6th anti-weaponization fund, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. He can't do that. Jill Biden, funny story. Jill Biden admitted today that during the 2024 debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, she thought Joe was having a stroke during the debate. In other words, Joe Biden was having a stroke during the debate. Now, another part. This is just little small clips of news we're going through. DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen has a message for sanctuary cities like Gavin Newsom. This is where it gets. So Gavin Newsom, 100% imposed tax, right? How do you fight back against that? Mark Wayne Mullen said, you want to refuse to enforce immigration laws? You want to be a sanctuary city, LA? Fine. We'll pull customs processing from your international airports. No customs, no international flights. That's pretty huge. Now, Gavin Newsom, today, all eyes on California. I just signed a bill making it illegal to seize ballots or interfere with election equipment. As Trump and MAGA assault democracy, we're not sitting idly by. We're safeguarding California's elections. Interesting, Gavin. So, I haven't read the whole bill, but let me give you an assessment here. Because there's something out there known as the Supremacy Clause. And the Supremacy Clause basically states, think about it as the 10th Amendment, that anything that is not inherent within the federal government is left to the states. Anything that is not left to the states is left to the federal government. I said, interesting framing here. Making it illegal for random activists or outside groups to seize ballots or interfere with machines, fine. That already exists under law. But if this law is designed to obstruct lawful federal investigations, court orders, subpoenas, or criminal probes into election irregularities, then it runs directly into the Constitution and the Supremacy Clause. States cannot shield elections from legitimate federal oversight simply by labeling all scrutiny an attack on democracy. If voter rolls are outdated, if fraud is alleged, if machines are compromised, or if federal crimes are suspected, the DOJ and FBI absolutely retain constitutional authority to investigate through lawful due process. The real question is this about protecting elections or protecting the systems from scrutiny? De Geneva. That's what I said. De Geneva. I said that. De Geneva. Because transparency, audits, lawful investigations, and chain of custody reviews are not assaults on democracy. They are part of the governmental process. Today, the Missouri Supreme Court upheld the state's new 7R1D congressional map, allowing it to go into effect for the 2026 midterms. Huge. The DOJ today arrested a CIA officer, David Rush. I want you to listen to this for a second. This is interesting. This is really, really interesting. David Rush had a top secret security clearance, a senior management position at the CIA, and apparently a very interesting storage situation. Federal agents raided his house last week and walked out with 300 gold bars worth over $40 million, $2 million in cash, and 35 luxury watches, mostly Rolexes. His explanation for the gold? Work-related expenses. It gets wilder. The man spent nearly 20 years lying about his entire background, fake degree, a Navy pilot career that never happened. None of it was real. He applied to the CIA 3 times before finally getting in, adding more fake credentials each time until something stuck. The CIA caught him through an internal investigation and handed it to the FBI. Who was the person that handed it to the FBI? CIA Director John Ratcliffe. Now, what was this guy doing? He was using CIA funds, rerouting CIA funds to buy $40 million worth of gold, $2 million of cash, and massive amounts of luxury Rolexes. Now, why is that interesting? Number one, the guy didn't have the background qualifications to be even in the CIA. He lied on his resume, which shows you that the background investigation of his top secret security clearance was fraudulent, that somehow he still got in. He passed his lie detector, so that didn't work. And then he got in there and he misdirected CIA funds through various different programs that he was operating into his own pocket. And he did it for 20 freaking years. That's the level of criminality that is operating within your intelligence agencies. Now, John Ratcliffe is the one that turned him in. Now, after an internal CIA investigation identified potential violations of the law, CIA Director John Ratcliffe referred the information directly to the FBI for law enforcement investigation. Is this Ratcliffe trying to remedy the situation about him spying on DNI Tulsi Gabbard? I don't know. Possibly. Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, just called a special session of the legislature to abolish Florida's homeowners' property taxes. Florida is about to make history. Once the legislature approves, it goes to the voters. 60% will easily pass this. DeSantis' plan, immediate $250,000 is tax-free, meaning all primary homes, $250,000 and under pay zero tax. The rest get to deduct it from the taxable amount. Schedule will be set to abolish taxes fully on primary residences. It could first double to $500K, then be lifted. 60% of primaries, Florida's primary homeowners fall into immediate no tax when the schedule kicks in. That's over 90% of homeowners paying $0. That needs to go nationwide. All right. Promethean Action, they had 2 great updates this week that I think that you should absolutely check out. Number one is Trump's new Bretton Woods is here. I love this one. You have Judy Shelton, who attacks the Fed's Keynesianism on MSNBC. If you don't know who Judy Shelton is, she was Trump's nominee for Federal Reserve Chairman back in 2017, who got ultimately denied. She is absolutely pro-gold. She's pro-Bretton Woods. She's pro-asset-based economy. You have Warsh that gets sworn into the regime change of the Federal Reserve, going to basically limit the powers of the Federal Reserve, shrink the Fed, shrink the deficit in the balance sheet, and then start handing off powers to the Treasury. You have the reallocation of monetization through the government. This is really interesting. They talk about this. A $210 billion Pentagon investment bank. You have another one working through the Department of Commerce and the Department of Treasury. And these are basically investment banks that are going out there and they're giving out loans to mineral and resource companies or investing in Intel or other companies. This is, I think, the framework being built out for the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So what does this do? This undermines the British imperial system, the London banking cartel. So what a new Bretton Woods actually means. The original Bretton Woods Conference created in post-World War II monetary systems. The US dollar became the world reserve currency. Other currencies were pegged to the dollar. The dollar itself was redeemable in gold. That system ended under Richard Nixon in 1971, which closed the gold window. Now, the new Bretton Woods that Judy Shelton was talking about would be resetting the global monetary order, rebuilding confidence in sovereign currencies, limiting uncontrolled debt monetization, huge, and potentially backing currencies with hard assets, countering the rise of BRICS alternative systems. So, Warsh is not your typical central banker. He has repeatedly criticized massive Fed balance sheet expansion, prolonged money printing, excessive forward guidance, and post-2008 interventionism that suggests tighter monetary credibility, restoring confidence in treasury markets, and potentially restructuring how the Fed operates, what I was just saying. If Trump's broader economic strategy is tariff-based industrial policy, domestic manufacturing, AI infrastructure dominance, energy expansion, and strategic decoupling from China, then the Warsh Fed could become the monetary arm of that geopolitical transition. What a new Bretton Woods agreement under Trump would look like. Not necessarily a pure gold standard, more likely asset-backed confidence mechanism. We talked about this. Gold, commodities, energy, strategic minerals, and even treasury-linked digital settlement systems. The goal will be restoring trust in the dollar while debt levels explode globally. Controlled dollar reset, not collapse, restructuring. The goals: preserve dollar reserve status, reduce dependence on foreign creditors, absorb deglobalization shock, and transition into a multipolar framework without losing U.S. dominance. The parallel financial infrastructure. This is already happening globally, and a lot of it is being kind of central around how Trump is doing this. You have the BRICS system. You have the Europeans playing with CBDC development. That comes about through the Bank of International Settlements Unified Ledger Framework. You have bilateral trade agreements, and you have de-dollarization attempts. This is all kind of the negative aspect. Trump-aligned response to that is reindustrialization, sovereign economic blocks, strategic tariffs, and a re-anchor of monetary legitimacy. So Fed reforms, Warsh hinted at reducing the Fed's footprint and balance sheet. That could mean less activist Fed policy, reduced market manipulation, higher real rates, and an attempt to restore honest price discovery. In theory, that strengthens long-term credibility. In practice, could create massive short-term volatility, which is good for all of us if you understand how the markets operate. The bigger geopolitical interpretation of all this is the transition away from the post-1971 fiat globalization era. And we're moving towards a new sovereign industrial monetary system. The interpretation: it weakens globalization. It strengthens nation-state economics. AI and energy become reserve assets of power, and monetary systems become tied to production capacity all over again. So this is where we are heading. The lucky winners: gold, commodities, energy, domestic manufacturing, strategic infrastructure, hard assets, and cryptocurrencies. The Council of Foreign Relations. So Trump has been, and I said I'll talk about this later, Trump has been dismantling this old guard system, which is this liberal-based rules-based order that came about after World War II. How did it operate? Well, obviously Bretton Woods, but you had basically the United States has a global reserve currency, and London controls the flow of money. Everything in the world flows through London in the context of money. London is the top trading firms in the world, as well as the top insurance firms in the world that move supply chain and resources. Trump undermined all of that with Iran. Got to remember that. And then we had some interesting thing happens. Trump is delineating away from partnerships with the Europeans, specifically with London. This was outlined in the national security strategy as well as the national defense strategy. This is being shown with his withdrawal from NATO and his non-support for Ukraine against Russia, more in a sense that he's aligning more with Russia in a multipolar framework than he is with Europe. In the national security strategy, Marco Rubio, in comments on it, said that Europe is insignificant right now as a competitor in the world geopolitically because they don't have a substantiated economy. They've let their military decline. There's no benefit for the United States to partner with them in a lot of different likes. So in understanding that, what we've seen is Mark Carney step up to the plate, trying to reform the New World Order, the global order of control. Mark Carney's nothing more than a puppet for the Rothschilds and the central banks. A few weeks ago, Mark Carney went to Armenia with a new kind of a meeting amongst these post-imperialistic nations. So British imperial system, post-British imperial system nations, Australia, Germany, France, England, these types of countries, UK, all there in Armenia, meeting up with Canada, discussing basically how to stop Trump, how to undo the damage that he's done starting in 2028, and how to re-implement their globalist agenda. Now, this came off the backs of the World Economic Forum meetings at the beginning of this year, where various different global Keir Starmer and Mark Carney came up and said that the liberal-based, rules-based international order is dead, that it's over, that Donald Trump has dismantled much of the globalist infrastructure. This is true. We're seeing this right now. But now we're seeing that the Council of Foreign Relations is also saying the same thing. Council of Foreign Relations has now put together a group to go out there and try to reorganize on how to defeat Donald Trump. The reason I brought up the Armenia meeting and Mark Carney, because a week later, Barack Obama and Alex Soros were in Canada meeting with Mark Carney. Now, listen to Linda Kokinda.
Now, in recent months, we've watched something remarkable. Imperial spokesmen like Canada's Mark Carney and imperial think tanks like Britain's Chatham House have been forced to concede in their own language that the post-war rules-based order and the so-called special relationship between Washington and London has been terminated by Donald Trump. Now the question has been handed to the CFR. Figure out what comes next. That's not an accident. The CFR was founded in the 1920s as the American sister organization to Britain's Chatham House. Its entire institutional history has been the management of America's foreign policy in service to the British. Now, the CFR's Rebecca Listener is coordinating the new project, and her background tells it all. She worked for Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the Kamala Harris campaign. But her shining moment was in the Biden White House, where she ran the NSC's Russia-Ukraine Tiger Team, the contingency planning cell for the war in Ukraine that has cost hundreds of thousands of lives. And now she's been handed the most important question in Washington. Where does American strategy go from here? Each contributor admits in their own way that the liberal international order, that's their branding for it, is over. But the contribution of Charles Kupchan, a veteran of Obama's NSC, who also studied at London's International Institute for Strategic Studies, stands out for uniqueness. His essay is entitled Between Two Orders, and it opens with a remarkable quote that comes from a 20th century Italian neo-Marxist, Antonio Gramsci. The crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, a great variety of morbid symptoms appear. Catch that? The Council on Foreign Relations is quoting a Marxist to describe what they're living through. Well, the symptoms are only morbid if you're committed to preserving the imperial system.
She's spot on. Now, this is 15 minutes long. I highly recommend you go listen to it. But what is the take? The take is that the globalists are reforming, that they're gathering all of their assets, and they are planning from 2028 on forth to undo everything that Donald Trump is doing right now. Which means that if Donald Trump truly wanted to win the war over the globalists, then he has to end this once and for all. He has to take down these systems and networks and ensure that they can never rise up to the positions of power that they were in before. That's a tall feat. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's going to be a crazy one. That's one you got to think about, because if these people still can walk the streets, they can still do a lot of damage, which means that you have to find the criminality behind these NGOs, behind these organizations, and behind the people heading them, and get them arrested. I hope that is what happens. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says oil prices are transitory and will soon be lower than pre-conflict levels. Now, that's really important there. He said pre-conflict levels. I remember I said we will have oil and gas prices most likely below $60 a barrel. People are like, no, that's not going to happen. I said, I'm telling you, watch. It's coming. They know what's coming. We know it's coming. Donald Trump today. And guys, I'm telling you, get on the crypto. I don't care if you think it's the craziest stuff in the world. Get on the crypto train. Trump, Gary Gensler, and the anti-crypto army nearly destroyed the American crypto industry by driving Bitcoin, crypto perpetuals, and innovation offshore. But Trump saved it. America is now the crypto capital of the world, and builders and entrepreneurs are coming back to the United States where they belong. Under my leadership, we will codify a future-proof digital asset market structure that cannot be undone by the crypto haters. The new frontier of finance is being built in America, and Trump will never let crypto down. President Donald J. Trump. Well, that's interesting, President Trump. Why crypto? Why is Donald Trump, 2021, Donald Trump, oh, crypto, it's fake. It's not real. I like things like real estate and gold. Then all of a sudden, Trump is into crypto. The answer is AI, artificial intelligence. AI and crypto share a common foundation, something we already talked about earlier in the show. See, AI's foundation, 3 core fundamentals: data, computation, energy. Crypto's foundation: data, computation, energy. By making the United States a crypto mining capital of the world, you build out an ancillary backbone for artificial intelligence that is decentralized from nation-state production. That's a matter of national security. That's why Trump is pro-crypto. All right. Little bit of UFO, UAP news. And I'm here more for the guidance of this stuff, guys. I know probably more than most on this topic. I find it funny, too. Like, a lot of the UFO and UAP influencers out there, these guys are just commenting on what's happening, and they get massive audiences, and they don't know shit about what's actually happening. But I'll happily tell you. Dr. Stephen Greer dropped a bombshell. Members of Congress quietly confirmed to him that a secret UFO program is run by corporations who are above the government. They have advanced reverse engineering tech from extraterrestrial civilizations thousands of years more developed than we are. Okay. Let's correct the record. This is the PSYOP people. Members of Congress are being largely misled. After 1952, various corporations took over the handling of these projects. Yet the command structure, compartmentalization, and bottom line authority still stayed within certain factions of the DoD brass, as it does today. How could the DoD still control these programs, hide them from oversight, and yet have them inside private corporations? Because that was likely the entire point of the national security architecture. After the early Cold War period, portions of highly sensitive aerospace and intelligence projects appear to have been pushed into military-industrial complex under the justification of national security, deniability, and continuity. On paper, a private corporation owns the facility, employs the engineers, holds the patents, controls the subcontractors, and manages the infrastructure. But the real authority does not disappear. It becomes indirect. The DoD controls access through security clearances, classified contracting, compartmentalized SAP structures, nuclear secrecy authorities, intelligence partnerships, and funding pipelines buried inside black budgets and waived oversight channels. The corporation becomes the shell. The authority remains embedded within a classified ecosystem that very few elected officials are ever fully read into. This creates the perfect insulation layer. If Congress asks questions, officials can say that is proprietary corporate information. Investigations push deeper, they hit classification walls. If FOIA requests are filed, the government can claim it does not possess the records directly. That's where we're at right now with the levels of declassification. Keep that in mind because we're going to talk about that in a second. And if a program becomes politically dangerous, plausible deniability already exists because the operational handling is technically outside normal government structures. Why is that important? You're hearing the rumors that the CIA was utilizing a company called 23andMe to honeypot DNA data. If the program becomes politically dangerous, plausible deniability already exists because operational handling is technically outside normal government structures. Ann Wachowski, wife of Sergey Brin, founder of Google, funded by In-Q-Tel, the CIA and DARPA's incubator. The first original Google Maps was actually I believe it was the Corona satellite images mapping of the planet Earth through the CIA satellites. Put it all together. Meanwhile, senior military and intelligence officials still influence the ecosystem through contracting authority, access permissions, security enforcement, and generational continuity networks. The public imagines control as someone sitting in a chair giving orders every morning. Real power structures are usually more sophisticated than that. You don't need direct ownership if you control the money, the secrecy, the clearances, the legal authorities, and the consequences for violating compartmentalization. That is how something can simultaneously appear private while still functioning as part of a deeply embedded national security apparatus. And why is that being kept from Congress? Because they don't want them to go that route. And I know that you're seeing that, Burleson is subpoenaing records from MITRE Corporation. He's not going to find anything. Number one is proper companies do not keep these projects within them. There's shell, there's ancillary corporations that are created as branch offs. That's what they're called, branch offs. So let's get into this more. Jeremy Corbell says White House and Pentagon comms departments contacted him to ask how they should tell Americans the truth about UFOs. So now this is Eric Weinstein and other scientists being contacted, people like Jeremy Corbell being contacted. You have the various different pastors and priests around the country being contacted by the White House to tell about how to really release this information. Okay. NASA Director Isaacman. He pulls back the curtain on Trump's declassified UFO files. He says no alien bodies, no crash ships, but decades of unexplained aerial sightings that federal agencies buried and never seriously investigated. Isaacman calls the mass disclosure citizen science. Well, there's a problem here. And if you've watched this show for any length of time, one of the things you know is I talked about the 3 different phases of how this disclosure is going to operate. Why? Because we know. But I want to show you where you are at right now with the information that you've seen come out. Here's a good assessment on this. Isaacman either doesn't know and is just being honest, or he does know and is covering it up. Although this brings into light something no one is talking about. The disclosure we are all getting right now is surface level. What does this mean? We can call this tier 1 disclosure, or current level. Agency reports filed by people who had no idea what they were observing, censored data and reports of anomalous phenomena, historical documents describing witness observation and anomalous phenomena. Notice the trend. It's all observational. If something is there, we don't know what it is. That's tier 1. That's what we're getting right now. If we had tier 2 disclosure, you would get internal assessments behind closed door, programs analyzing performance characteristics, propulsion signatures, transmedium travel, radar anomalies, nuclear correlations, biological effects, and intelligence evaluations. Not we saw something, but we have reason to believe these phenomena represent technology or intelligence beyond conventional explanation. Tier 2 would mean governments and defense agencies admitting they have reached conclusions they are currently withholding from the public. Now, why is that important? We are getting surface level tier 1 disclosure right now. It is moving to tier 2 disclosure. The first part of tier 1 disclosure was to get the interest of the scientific communities to begin setting that banister effect seed in their minds, realizing that this is very, very real. Then tier 2 disclosure comes out. Tier 2 is the sensor information, the data, the math, the science, the understanding of what they have on these observational phenomena. Okay? Why are they going out there and asking Eric Weinstein and other scientists and Michio Kaku and people like Jeremy Corbell, how do we tell people the truth about this? Because they're getting ready for tier 2 disclosure. If we had tier 3 disclosure, this is the real meat and potatoes. Recovered materials, reverse engineered programs, compartmentalized special access programs, direct evidence of non-human intelligence, biologics, and interactions, proof that elements within government, defense contractors, or intelligence networks have known far more than publicly admitted for decades. Tier 3 is where disclosure stops being a mystery story and becomes a civilization-changing revelation. The important thing to understand is that most of the public is still arguing over tier 1 while assuming they are discussing tier 3. Distinction matters. Now, here's the problem about tier 3. You're never going to see tier 3. It's not going to happen. They're going to release just enough to put it into the scientist's brain, setting the seeds for them to begin using AI, like the Genesis mission, which is going to have access to back-end information about all this to put it all together. See, we're going to derive this stuff through human innovation with a little help and a boost secretly. That's what's coming. I don't think you're going to get tier 3 disclosure. My thoughts. What do we got? Man, we went late tonight, huh? Woo. We went real late. I don't have any more ads. I was going to read the Rumble one, but they didn't put it up there. But if you guys want to support me and support what we do here at the Red Pill Project, visit redpills.tv, redpills.tv. Give, Send, Go campaign, PayPal, everything out there to help support us, as well as all of our sponsors to lift them there. Lifewave, if you haven't tried them, people were talking about the patches earlier. Amazing. Go check those out. Life.redpills.tv. And right here, we'll just go through them. Life.redpills.tv right there if you want to get Lifewave and get involved in Lifewave. We're going to be having a meeting here soon during the week on all the other opportunities from Lifewave, how to use them, all of this stuff. That is coming up. I got to build this out, but I do have a busy next few months, so we're trying to do that. But it's going to be a big family that we're going to create with this, so keep that in mind. Pet Club, petclub.redpills.tv. Get your immune modulating mushrooms, get your clarity, get your restore. Just go to that link right there, petclub.redpills.tv, and find out more information. Gratus, we haven't talked about Gratus in a while, but we're going to be having Bob and Jason on here again soon. And if you're interested in Gratus, go to gratus.redpills.tv. And then ways to help us, give.redpills.tv. Guys, I appreciate you more than you could ever imagine. I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of your evening. Sorry we went so late, almost an hour and a half on this show. Crazy, right? Almost an hour and a half on this show. I was looking for something. I didn't find it, but that's okay. I think I found it now. I did. And, someone mentioned at the beginning of this show a connection. Like last night, I talked about the Knights Templar. And I said that we already done shows on this. Now, I find it interesting because if they went to the Guardians of Truth, did they ever notice? By the way, I'm the Guardians of Truth. Like that's my band, my music. Did you notice it? Just saying. But guys, much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. I hope you guys all have a good one. And I will see you tomorrow on another episode of the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. See you guys. Good night.
There was a time when I children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns in silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Through the smoke, a voice still calls. We the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil under. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a life's prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time, there was a time. Now is the time. Do it.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!